Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about Tinesium garbage with some innovations, let's say. This is the Olight Osight, Olight's latest optic to bomb after their last literal bomb. But at least it's not rebranded garbage marked up 8 times over market value. Full disclosure on this optic is that I got this optic from a malevolent viewer of the channel who wanted to see me kill it. So thank him. My pain is your pleasure, you sick bastards. Getting into the basics of the Big O is a 3 MOA red dot designed for use on pistols. Supposedly, even though half of them appear to not hold 0 on pistols, but we will get into that later. The mounting footprint is RMR, which is one of the 2 things that I like about this optic. The thick aluminum hole wraps around a XL-sized window. Hey, there's the second thing I like about this optic. On top, we have our charging pad for our charging cover. Okay, let's get this out of the way. It has an internal, non-replaceable battery. I don't like that at all. Now, battery life on the internal battery is rated at 70,000 hours at the lowest setting. At the highest setting, it's rated for 400 hours, which is not so great. Well, thanks for being honest at least. Now, to be fair, you won't have the dot at max brightness, maybe 1 or 2 settings under that, so your real battery life will be better than 400 hours. And that is of course combined with the auto and off function, so you should get a few months of life out of it, even if you're carrying it every day. Don't do that though. It also has a auto brightness mode with a forward-facing sensor that will automatically adjust the brightness to whatever it senses. The problems with auto brightness settings is going to be dynamic environments. Say shooting from a dark room into a brighter environment means the dot will be low based upon where you're shooting from, not where you're shooting into, which is where you would need it to be bright. I don't trust Olight to begin with, and I don't trust auto brightness either, so I turned that off after checking it out for a few minutes. In manual mode, you have 10 daylight settings and 2 night vision settings. I have actually used this quite a bit at night under nods, and the glass is okay, but the dot is always brighter than what I would want it to be. So the night vision settings do work, but only barely. To recharge the optic, you have an optic cover that will charge the optic. Then you recharge that optic hood. The cover on its own should be able to give you 2 to 3 charges on 1 charge of the optic hood. So in theory, if you keep the hood in your kit, you can keep the optic going for a while. I just don't like the idea of having a single separate proprietary item that charges your aiming device. Now, talking about the glass, it is big, almost 1 inch by 1 inch, which for a pistol dot is huge. The quality, however, is lesser. It's a little warpy, there's a little magnification, the tint isn't too bad, but overall kind of middling. The issues start with the dot and the reflections in the glass. The dot is supposedly rated at 3 MOA, but it ends up being bigger and uglier at usable brightness settings. I'm fine with 6 MOA dots in general for pistol work, but this isn't supposed to be 6 MOA. However, the emitter housing also reflects into the glass, which makes the dot look worse with this big blocky red haze around the dot itself. On top of that, depending on your lighting scenario, you can get a nasty haze in the top half of the glass. But again, that's only in certain circumstances. Other people have had more issues with the emitter, dot, and glass, but those are just my issues. If I didn't mention it already, we have windage and elevation that are adjusted with a tiny flathead, and I think they are in 1 MOA increments. Not much to talk about. Now getting into actually using the thing, the big window is nice, at least in theory. It's kind of wasted in this scenario when we talk about the issues with the dot and the glare, but at least it is big. Now, a lot of the time that I've had the Osight, it has been mounted on a rifle, on top of various optics. My favorite being the forbidden Elcan Osight combo. Imagine having 2 optics that bad on 1 rifle. But it also spent time alongside the ACOG and PLXC, giving the Osight a permanent inferiority complex. But for well over 1,000 rounds of rifle shooting, it held 0, and for some of my night shooting, it was my primary optic. Not a wise choice on my part. Now on a rifle, it is under a lot less stress versus on a pistol with a slide slamming back and forth, and that is where most of Osight's issues arise. Now on my aim surplus slide, which isn't a great optic host, it mostly held 0. There were a few times where I would check it and it would wander 4 to 6 inches at 25 yards, which could also be blamed on the aim slide, that it doesn't have the recoil bosses to lock the optic in better. Regardless of what we blame the shift on, at least during normal use, it isn't as bad as others have seen. I've seen several feet of shift at similar distances with minimal use and abuse. Now for funsies, I did my normal double drop test on the Olight Osight. So at 20 yards bagged, we do our 5-round control group, which isn't great. I think I may need to retire this slide and barrel combo. Moving on, we do our first shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks, which is about the hardest impact most optics will take in a realistic scenario, and we do another 5-round group. 2 really wacky flyers, but the group mostly overlaid the first. After that, we move on to the unrealistic test. I completely expected the Optic to die, but to my chagrin, it in fact survived out of pure spite for being born into this cruel world as an Olight Osight. Then we perform another 5-round group, and somehow the grouping was still in the same area. So a bit of a mixed bag. So in this section, entitled Things I Like, let's go over the redeeming aspects of the Osight. Number 1, I like the size of the window. Literally just the size of it. Number 2, I like that it is the proper footprint. Number 3, I will throw it in here that it is only $200, which is still a big chunk of change, but at least it's not $300 rebranded garbage, it's $200 garbage all on its own. So do I recommend the Osight? No. I personally don't like proprietary charging methods. I don't like non-replaceable batteries. I don't like the glare in the glass. I don't like the look of the dot. I don't like the emitter reflecting in the glass. And I also don't like Olight paying off YouTubers to not mention issues with their products. But we'll get to you shortly. At the end of the day, I think it's sort of a meme waste of $200. You can find HoloSuns and even some of the new Vortex stuff on sale for around that price, and I think the HoloSuns have a pretty good track record at this point. Not perfect, but pretty good over the last few years, and there are some other cheaper options as well from very new, semi-reputable places that are going to still be a gamble, but at least it's a gamble that you might get something that's decent for the money versus just something that's bad in general. I am surprised I didn't break the glass though. I will give the Osight that. Fortune has smiled upon you today, even if I don't. But with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you think of the Olight Osight in the comments down below. And with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.